Hello everyone, tonight we're going to do something dangerous. Drop you into the middle of the Harappan Civilization about 4,000 years ago and watch you try to survive a single day. Spoiler alert, you probably won't. The air is hot, sticky, and heavy with the smell of dung fires and bodies crammed too close together. You're surrounded by walls of baked brick, narrow streets, and a market hum that feels more like a swarm of bees than human voices. You don't understand the language, you don't understand the rules, and worst of all, you've got no idea where to get breakfast. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Seriously, it helps me survive the YouTube algorithm better than you'll survive in Harappa. Share your thoughts down below. What you'd do if you were dropped in a Bronze Age city, or what part of history you want me to roast next. And hey, remember that time you instinctively checked if your front door was locked 3 times in a row? Cavemen left that paranoia behind for you. Congratulations, you're part of the legacy. Now back to Harappa. You've woken up on a mat woven from reeds, borrowed from a family who thinks you're some kind of odd cousin that wandered in from nowhere. The walls around you are clay-plastered brick, and there's a faint scratching sound. Rats, or maybe a goat trying to nose through your door. You shuffle into the street barefoot, instantly regretting it because the ground is sharp with gravel, broken pottery, and something suspiciously wet. The city is already awake. Vendors shouting, cattle lowing, dogs barking, and children weaving between carts like tiny lunatics. The first thing you notice is the heat. The second is the smell. Imagine mixing cow manure, sweaty armpits, fried lentils, and an open sewer. That's your new cologne. Strangely, the Harappans were ahead of their time with sanitation. Every house connects to a drainage channel, and those channels connect to covered brick sewers under the street. Compared to most ancient cities, this is practically luxury plumbing. But luxury for them is still a bacterial rave for you. One sip of unboiled well water, and you'll be praying to gods whose names you don't even know. You wander toward the heart of the settlement. The streets are laid out in a neat grid, straight lines that make New York City look like it copied homework from Harappa. Historians are still debating whether this level of order came from some central authority, a kind of Bronze Age mayor, or whether the locals just collectively agreed not to live like chaos gremlins. Either way, it's efficient, but efficiency doesn't save you from being an outsider. Everyone's wearing cotton cloth draped neatly, jewelry of carnelian beads or bronze bangles, while you look like a confused time tourist who raided a thrift store. Someone points at you, then at the Great Bath, a massive, rectangular pool lined with bricks, carefully waterproofed with bitumen. It's not a swimming pool, it's ritual. People climb in and out with solemnity, maybe for cleansing, maybe for status. You're tempted to jump in just to cool off, but the glares from the priests suggest you'd be more drowned interloper than honored guest. You step back, trying to look casual. Spoiler, you don't. Your stomach growls. Food, right. The Harappans are farmers at heart. Wheat, barley, chickpeas, sesame, maybe even rice in the later years. You catch the smell of bread baking on a clay hearth, the smoky warmth making your mouth water. You want to buy some, but you don't have the currency. Here's the kicker. They might not even have used coins like you expect. Instead, they had standardized weights and measures, little stone cubes so consistent they make modern factory standards jealous. Without one, you're basically trying to pay with Monopoly money. A man hands you a bowl of lentil stew anyway. Maybe he thinks you're a guest. Maybe he thinks you're pathetic. Either way, you shovel it down too quickly and scald your tongue. Pro tip, don't laugh when you see another guy rubbing crocodile poop on his skin. That's an actual ancient sunscreen hack. You think it's ridiculous? But then you remember the UV index here is brutal, and your SPF 50 is thousands of years away from invention. Joke's on you when your nose peels like a dying onion tomorrow. Walking further, you notice something odd. No giant temples, no flashy palaces, no huge statues of kings showing off. Harappa is strangely modest. Power here seems spread out, less about one supreme ruler and more about community or merchants running the show. That sounds democratic and nice until you realize it means no one has your back. You're just a stranger in a city of thousands, every pair of eyes calculating whether you're worth feeding or ignoring. A kid tugs your hand and drags you toward a stall of seals. Not animal seals, stone seals, tiny engraved blocks with animals and strange writing on them. Unicorns, bulls, elephants. The kid points at the symbols, chirping words you can't decode. Historians are still debating whether this script was a full language or just an elaborate symbol system for trade. Either way, you're illiterate in Harappan. Illiteracy means no contracts, no trade, no way to defend yourself in a market dispute. Imagine trying to rent an apartment today without reading the lease. You'd be eaten alive. By now you're sweating, lost, and vaguely nauseous. A passing ox cart almost runs you down, the driver yelling something that probably translates to "move, idiot." You dodge, stumble into a pile of goat dung, and realize you're not just failing. You're broadcasting your failure to the entire city. The locals laugh. To them, you're just the day's entertainment. To you, it's the first hour of a day you won't survive. You won't. You're thirsty, like mouth full of sandpaper, tongue stuck to your teeth. Thirsty. That lentil stew filled your belly but didn't quench a thing. So you stumble toward the sound of splashing, weaving through alleyways that all look like they were drawn with a ruler. It doesn't take long before you spot the wells. Harappan cities had them everywhere. More wells per square meter than some modern towns have vending machines. Archaeologists love pointing this out because it shows how obsessed these people were with water management. And you're about to find out why that's both a blessing and a curse. You peer down into one of these brick-lined shafts. The water at the bottom glistens, faintly reflecting the morning sun. A woman lowers a clay pot with a rope, hauls it back up, and pours it into a jar without spilling a drop. You try to mime "me too" with your hands, but she scowls like you just asked her to share her Netflix password. She gives you a ladle anyway, and you gulp greedily. Big mistake. See, Harappans may have had some of the best sanitation of their time. Covered drains, household toilets, even soak pits under the streets. But your 21st century gut biome is not ready for their bacteria. Within minutes, you feel the unmistakable gurgle of intestinal betrayal. You start sweating harder, partly from the heat, partly from knowing you'll soon be sprinting toward the nearest public latrine. Pro tip, Harappa did have them, but the line is longer than a Starbucks drive-thru on Monday morning. While you're clenching your way through the city, you stumble into the Great Bath again. This time, you watch as people strip down, step into the rectangular pool, and submerge themselves in what looks like holy seriousness. It's not for fun. Historians are still debating whether it was about purification, religious ritual, or just community hygiene. Whatever the case, you're not getting in. Not after that water you drank. You just turn the whole thing into the great biohazard. To distract yourself from your stomach cramps, you notice the infrastructure. The streets are lined with covered drains. Workers occasionally lift the stone slabs to clear blockages with long poles. Imagine having a city maintenance crew in 2000 BCE. Meanwhile, some towns today still can't figure out how to fix a pothole. You shake your head, then nearly trip over a goat that's been tethered to a drain outlet. The goat looks at you like it knows you're weak. You probably are. Odd fact time. Did you know cotton was first spun here? The Harappans were among the earliest people to turn fluffy white fibers into cloth, that tunic brushing against your arm. Cotton, which means while your ancestors were still wrapping themselves in itchy animal hides, these folks were already rocking summer fashion lines. And here you are, sweating through your modern t-shirt that suddenly feels like the wrong choice for this weather. A local boy waves you over and points at the drain that runs along the street. He mimics squatting, then grins. Congratulations, you've been recruited into sewer watching duty. Some unlucky Harappan had to keep those drains unclogged. And today, that unlucky soul is you. You crouch down, pinch your nose, and pry loose a wad of sludge that smells like Satan's compost bin. Behind you, a group of kids giggle. This is your initiation. Cleaning ancient plumbing while praying you don't vomit in public. When you finally straighten up, dizzy from the stench, you're struck by how advanced this all is. Indoor toilets connected to drains, soak jars for wastewater, even early soak pits filled with ash to filter liquid. You realize that while Rome brags about aqueducts, Harappa was quietly flexing with neighborhood-level sanitation 2,000 years earlier. But the catch? None of that matters to you. Your body can't handle even their clean water, and your delicate immune system is begging for Gatorade and antibiotics. As the sun climbs higher, the wells become gathering points. Women line up with clay jars balanced on their hips. Men gossip in low tones. Kids splash each other with stolen scoops. You hover awkwardly at the edge, still clutching your stomach. Nobody offers you water this time. Maybe they figured out your trouble. Or maybe they just don't want to share with a stranger who clearly can't handle it. You drag yourself away and wander down a side street. A cow blocks your path, chewing something that looks like old rope. In Harappa, cows are everywhere, half sacred, half traffic hazard. You try to shoo it, but it doesn't budge. The animal stares you down with that blank bovine gaze that says, "I was worshipped before you were born, mortal." You sigh and step around it right into a puddle. And let's be honest, that puddle is probably not rainwater. At this point, you realize survival here isn't about finding water. It's about surviving the water you find. Your 21st century luxuries like bottled water, chlorine, and filter straws are centuries away. You're playing bacterial roulette every time you swallow. And unlike the locals who've built resistance over generations, you're a soft, spoiled outsider. The truth hits you. Hydration might kill you faster than dehydration. Still, you carry on. Because what else are you going to do? Curl up in the street and cry? Not yet. You shuffle back toward the market, ignoring the cramps, hoping maybe someone sells boiled barley drinks or fermented stuff that's safer. As you go, you pass another well. A woman draws water, spills some into a trough for the animals, and the overflow trickles into the street drain. The cycle is endless. Drawn, used, drained, cleaned, repeated. It's a whole urban choreography you never imagined existed this far back in time. And then you laugh because you suddenly remember your modern obsession with detox water. Sliced cucumbers, lemon wedges, fancy mason jars. Meanwhile, Harappans just drank straight from a clay pot and trusted their guts. Literally. You clutch your stomach again and mutter, "Yeah, I'm definitely not surviving this." Your stomach has calmed just enough for you to think about food again, which is insane because you nearly died from the water. But here you are, drifting toward the noise and chaos of the marketplace. It's loud, it's crowded, and it smells like someone mixed fried chickpeas with burning dung, a goat's sneeze, and a hint of sesame oil. Welcome to the Harappan Bazaar, where survival for you is less about hunger and more about not being crushed, robbed, or laughed out of existence. The market stretches along a straight road, stalls built from wooden frames and cloth awnings. Merchants shout in a language you can't decode, hands waving, prices argued with intensity that makes modern Black Friday look polite. You hear the thud of grain sacks being dropped, the clatter of copper pots, the squeal of unhappy goats tied to posts. Somewhere nearby, a flute plays a tune that sounds like it's being strangled by a cat. And in all of this, you, the time-traveling tourist, with no money, no language, and zero street smarts are supposed to buy lunch. You wander to a stall stacked with bright red beads. They're carnelian, polished, smooth, gleaming in the sun. Jewelry here isn't just decoration, it's currency, status, identity. The merchant eyes you like you're about to pocket something. You raise your hands, shake your head, and try to look harmless. Spoiler, you don't. At the next stall, there's wheat ground into flour, barley piled in baskets, and flatbread cooking on a clay pan. The smell is torture. You point, you mime eating, and you even hold out the random pebble you picked up earlier as if it were currency. The merchant laughs so hard he nearly drops his bread. A crowd gathers, chuckling at your ridiculous attempt at barter. Someone hands you a small stone cube, smooth, precise, perfectly shaped. It's a standardized weight. The Harappans love these, using them to measure goods in trade. Problem is, you don't have a full set, and without context, you're basically trying to buy groceries with a single Lego piece. Historians are still debating whether the Harappans used coins, tokens, or some other form of currency. What we know is that trade revolved around these standardized weights, seals, and goods themselves, which means that you, hungry outsider, are broke. A kid offers you a bowl of lentils in exchange for, well, he mimics you dancing like a chicken. You think he's joking. He's not. And yes, you do it because hunger trumps dignity. Congratulations, you've just invented performance art for food. As you eat, you notice another stall selling engraved seals. Tiny stones carved with animals, unicorns, bulls, elephants. Each seal is pressed into clay to mark ownership, goods, or maybe identity. You lean in to look, and the merchant shoos you away, muttering words that probably translate to "tourist fingerprints ruin everything." You back off, embarrassed, and wonder again what those mysterious symbols mean. Are they names? Labels? Sacred chants? No one knows because historians are still arguing about whether it's a full written language or just proto-emoji for Bronze Age accountants. Odd fact detour, one of the animals carved on these seals is a unicorn. Not the glittery horse with a rainbow mane, but a squat bull-like creature with one horn. Nobody knows if it was real, myth, or just a cow drawn badly after too much fermented barley. But it means that technically, unicorns did exist, in Harappan paperwork at least. Back in the bazaar, the chaos ramps up. A bullock cart lumbers through, loaded with sacks of grain, and the driver yells until the crowd parts. You get shoved against a wall, your stew nearly spilling down your front. Someone laughs, another tosses you a date fruit out of pity, and for a brief moment, you think maybe you'll be okay. But then you remember you can't read, you can't trade, and you're a walking target. The real danger here isn't starvation. It's being cheated, mocked, or ignored until you're too weak to move. The locals know the rules. They know the weights, the bargains, the handshakes, and the gossip. You're fumbling through like a toddler in a stock exchange. Every shout sounds urgent. Every gesture looks like a threat. And when a merchant finally takes your empty bowl back and points to the street, you realize he's telling you to move along. You've had your charity for the day. You step away, heart pounding, clutching your stomach again. The marketplace hums behind you, but you're already calculating how long you can last without food you can reliably get. Maybe a day, maybe two. And as the sun beats down, you realize this civilization may be advanced, clean, and organized, but none of that saves you, because without language, currency, or cultural knowledge, you're less a survivor and more a slow-motion punchline. And trust me, no amount of unicorn seals will save you from that. You've barely made it out of the market with your dignity intact, which is a lie. You danced for lentils, remember? Now you're wandering through a quieter district of Harappa, past walls where clay is patched with straw, and past alleys that twist like someone got bored halfway through city planning. That's when you see them. Carved seals scattered on a blanket, glinting like business cards from 4,000 years ago. You pick one up before the seller can stop you. It's small, cool in your hand, carved from steatite, and etched with a picture of what looks like a horned bull, or maybe a lumpy dog with attitude. Above it, tiny symbols scratch across the surface like code you'll never crack. The merchant barks something at you, snatches it back, and points at a clay tablet stamped with the same design. You realize these aren't toys. They're passports, trademarks, official branding. Lose one, and someone else could claim your stuff. The problem is, you're functionally illiterate. Harappan script, those neat little squiggles that show up on seals, pottery, and the occasional copper plate, still hasn't been decoded in the modern world. Historians are still debating whether it's even a true writing system or just shorthand for trade. And here you are, standing in front of it, utterly useless. It's like watching someone type in binary while you try to order pizza. A group of kids notice you staring at the symbols and start chanting mockingly, waving their hands like they're performing a ritual. You chuckle nervously, because that's what you do when you don't understand the joke. The oldest kid makes a gesture, one hand up, the other resting on his knee, back hunched. You've seen that before. On another seal, where a figure sat cross-legged surrounded by animals. Some scholars think it might be an early depiction of Shiva or a prototype yoga pose. But here, it's a playground taunt. Congrats. You've just been roasted by Bronze Age children. You move on quickly, pretending you have somewhere important to be. Along the way, you pass shrines with offerings, small lumps of butter, beads, or animal figurines. No towering temples, no massive statues, just these quiet tokens scattered through the city. Faith here is subtle, woven into daily life rather than shouted in stone. That should comfort you, but it doesn't. It just means you have no idea which behavior is sacred and which is sacrilegious. Step in the wrong place, touch the wrong seal, and you're toast. Odd fact detour. Archaeologists once dug up terracotta figurines that looked like women with exaggerated hips and chests. Were they fertility goddesses? Toys? Early action figures? No one knows. You imagine a Harappan kid begging his mom for the newest terracotta Barbie, complete with grain basket accessories. The thought makes you snort, loudly enough that the passing potter carrying a load of clay glares like you insulted his grandmother. Smooth move. You duck into a side lane where artisans are working. The rhythmic clang of bronze tools rings out, mingling with the smell of baked clay. One man dips a seal into soft clay, pulls it back, and the imprint is crisp, perfect, permanent. You wonder how many contracts, trades, and promises have been sealed, literally, this way. Then you realize something darker. Without seals or script, you can't prove anything. No identity, no ownership, no protection. You're a ghost here, and ghosts don't survive markets, farms, or even friendships. The paranoia creeps in. What if someone accused you of stealing because you couldn't stamp your name? What if your borrowed reed mat back in the house gets claimed by another family and you have no seal to defend it? What if those laughing kids spread a rumor that you mocked the wrong god? In a culture where power hides in symbols, you're as powerless as a man with no Wi-Fi. A dog barks, startling you. You glance down and see it pawing at a broken piece of pottery etched with symbols. You crouch, trace the lines with your finger, and wish you could unlock them. Imagine if you could walk into the bazaar, slam down a seal, and demand bread with authority. Imagine if you could read a ritual and know exactly what to do in the Great Bath. But no, you're stuck. Harappans lived in a world built on signs, and you can't even read the street graffiti. By late afternoon, the sun hangs like a molten coin in the sky. Shadows stretch across the lanes. A priest-like figure passes by, robe flowing, seal hanging from his neck. People bow slightly. You don't. Not because you're disrespectful, but because you have no idea who he is. The priest's eyes narrow. You quickly bow anyway. Too late, too awkward. You've just performed the Bronze Age equivalent of forgetting to mute yourself on Zoom. Everyone noticed. You walk faster, heart thumping, desperate to disappear into the crowd. The city hums around you, but for the first time, you feel how invisible and how exposed you really are. You can't read their words. You can't use their seals. You can't honor their gods properly. In Harappa, survival isn't just about food or water. It's about belonging. And you, my friend, don't. The market laughter fades as you shuffle toward the edge of the city. The smell changes too, less dung smoke, more wet earth. You've reached the farmlands where Harappa's real lifeblood lives. Flat fields stretch out like patchwork, dotted with barley stalks and patches of wheat, sesame, and chickpeas. Farmers bend low, swinging wooden plows pulled by bulls that look like they've seen too much of life. You watch a man smack his bull on the rump with a stick, and the animal trudges forward like it's been doing this for centuries. A woman squats nearby, weaving cotton fibers into thread. Cotton, an invention you thought belonged to your modern t-shirts, was already old news here. She glances up, frowns at your soft hands, and mutters something. A boy laughs and mimics your limp posture. Translation: city outsider, useless in the fields. Before you can walk away, the man with the bull waves you over. Guess what? You've just been conscripted. They shove a wooden hoe into your hands, point at a row, and gesture for you to dig. The soil is stubborn, packed hard by the sun, and your back protests within seconds. Sweat pours down your face, stinging your eyes. Meanwhile, the farmer's 10-year-old daughter works twice as fast, humming a tune while balancing a water jug on her head. You're officially the weakest link in the Bronze Age labor force. Odd fact detour, archaeologists once found traces of millet in Harappan storage jars. Millet is hardy, drought-resistant, and boring as toast. It's the kind of grain that keeps people alive but never makes anyone say, "Wow, let's start a food festival." You, however, would kill for a bowl right now, if only because your lentil stew is long gone and your stomach is staging another protest. The heat is merciless. You straighten up, wipe your forehead, and look toward the horizon. Clouds are gathering, not fluffy, white, but dark, bruised, and heavy. The monsoon? You've read about it, sure, but standing here you understand why historians are still debating whether monsoon shifts caused the civilization's decline. The rains are both salvation and destruction. When they come on time, crops thrive. When they fail, famine sets in. When they come too strong, floods sweep away homes and fields. The first fat drops hit your skin. Cool relief for about 2 seconds. Then the sky cracks open, and it's like someone dumped a river straight from the heavens. Farmers cheer, bulls groan, and water floods the furrows in an instant. You stand there, drenched, blinking through the sheets of rain, while everyone else gets to work, redirecting water with little channels cut into the soil. You try to copy them, but your ditch collapses like a sad sandcastle. A boy laughs so hard he nearly falls in the mud. And mud! Oh, the mud! It sucks at your ankles, splatters your legs, and tries to steal your hoe with every step. You slip, land on your backside, and splash water high enough to soak the nearest goat. The goat bleats angrily. Everyone laughs. You are once again the village clown. But the danger isn't just embarrassment. Too much rain means ruined crops. Too little rain means empty granaries. Harappa balanced on this knife edge every year. You suddenly realize how fragile life here really is. Despite the advanced drainage and smart farming, all it takes is one bad season, one misstep from the monsoon, and the city could starve. And you? You'd starve first. You don't know how to store grain, smoke fish, or ration food. You're just hoping DoorDash delivers to 2000 BCE. By late afternoon, the storm passes. The fields glisten, the air smells fresh, and frogs croak like it's their birthday. The farmers celebrate with flatbread baked over an open fire. Someone tosses you a piece, charred on one side, doughy on the other. You bite into it anyway, grateful, even though it tastes like someone tried to invent cardboard. At least it's food. As the sun dips low, the farmers herd their bulls back toward the city. You trail behind, soaked, filthy, and sore in muscles you didn't know existed. The road is slick, puddles hiding deep ruts carved by countless carts. You nearly twist your ankle stepping into one, and the farmer's daughter giggles at your clumsiness. She balances her jug on her head like it's nothing. You wobble just watching her. You glance back at the fields one last time. They look peaceful now, but you know better. They're traps, promises of life one year, death the next. You might have survived a few hours of farm labor, but if you had to live here for real, your body would break long before the monsoon decided your fate. And just like that, another way you wouldn't survive Harappa sinks in. The fields shrink behind you as you follow the rutted road into the din of carts, cattle, and traders shouting in 20 dialects you'll never learn. The smell hits you first, spices, sweat, and the musky odor of bullocks dragging wagons piled high with grain sacks and pottery jars. This is Harappa's highway, the artery of trade that connected the city to places you've only seen in textbooks. And you're about to hitch the worst ride of your life. A driver waves you over, maybe amused by your blank expression. His cart creaks under the weight of cotton bales bound with rope. You point to the empty space at the back, mime writing, and grin like a desperate hitchhiker. He shrugs, smacks the bullock's rump, and suddenly you're jostling over uneven ground with nothing but a pile of itchy cotton to cling to. Spoiler: ancient suspension didn't exist. The road winds past storehouses where bricks are stacked like giant Lego, each building tall enough to swallow a modern warehouse. Seals mark the goods inside: barley, beads, or sesame oil. You marvel at the organization, the sheer scale of commerce. This isn't just a city. It's part of an economic web stretching from Mesopotamia to Central Asia. Archaeologists have found Mesopotamian tablets referencing Meluha, widely believed to mean this civilization. And here you are, bouncing along in the back of a cart that might someday deliver cotton to Sumer. Globalization, 2000 BCE edition. Odd fact detour. One clay tablet from Mesopotamia listed imported Harappan goods like carnelian beads and ivory combs. Imagine explaining to them that in your world, people buy plastic beads in bulk for crafting TikTok bracelets. The past would be deeply unimpressed. The bullock cart lurches through a gate at the city's edge where guards with wooden staffs inspect goods. You panic for a second, half expecting them to demand a passport. Instead, they glance at the seals, nod, and wave the driver on. You, however, get suspicious looks. You're unmarked, unsealed, unverified. In Harappa's bureaucratic world, that makes you a liability. The guard spits in the dust, mutters something sharp, and you shrink into the cotton bales like a guilty cat. Hours pass. The sun scorches your skin, dust coats your mouth, and your legs cramp from clinging to the wagon. You'd complain, but the driver wouldn't understand. So instead, you mutter to yourself, "Remember when I thought the hardest part of travel was a middle seat on Spirit Airlines? At least airplanes come with pretzels." The cart finally rattles into another hub where more traders gather. Here, barter is in full swing. Beads for grain, cotton for metals, sesame oil for dried fish. A man with a basket of lapis lazuli shouts loudly, the blue stones glimmering like tiny skies. You realize this trade isn't just survival, it's prestige. Wearing carnelian beads or lapis here is like flexing designer sneakers. Meanwhile, your sneakers are covered in mud and smell like despair. Historians are still debating whether Harappan trade was run by merchant guilds, rulers, or decentralized networks. Whatever the truth, you see the effect. Order without kings, commerce without coins, deals sealed by stone stamps instead of signatures. It's efficient, brilliant, and utterly confusing to someone who can't haggle without Google Translate. You try. You really do. You point at a loaf of bread, gesture at your mud-caked shoe, and attempt to swap. The merchant laughs so hard he nearly drops his basket of dates. Another trader joins in, holding up a bead as if to say, "Seriously? That shoe?" You're officially the joke of the trade hub. The driver hauls you back onto the cart before you embarrass him further. The journey resumes, dust rising behind like a tail. You pass travelers walking barefoot, women balancing jars, men leading donkeys laden with goods. Everyone moves with purpose. Everyone belongs to this network. Everyone but you. By evening, the cart rattles back toward Harappa. You're sore, sunburned, and humiliated. The driver shoos you off with a grunt, probably relieved to be rid of his useless passenger. You stagger into the city gates just as torches flicker to life, shadows stretching long across the walls. And here's the kicker. If you can't survive in the fields and you can't survive in the markets, you sure as hell can't survive in the trade routes. They demand stamina, connections, and knowledge you'll never catch up to. In Harappa, the world doesn't stop to teach stragglers. It moves with the bulls, steady and relentless, and you're already falling behind. By the time you drag yourself back into Harappa, night has fallen. The city that buzzed with life hours ago now hums with the quieter tension. Torches flicker against brick walls, shadows stretch across empty streets, and the smell of smoke lingers in the damp air. You hear distant voices, muted, uneasy. Something feels different tonight, heavier, and that's when you realize you've stumbled into Harappa during its slow unraveling. The signs are everywhere. Wells you passed earlier are running shallow, their water tasting more bitter than before. Storage jars are lighter, grain running thin. Farmers grumble about rains that came too late, or too hard, or not at all. Historians are still debating whether climate change, shifting rivers, or collapsing trade routes caused Harappa's decline. Standing here, soaked in sweat and grime, you realize it's probably all of the above. You wander past abandoned homes, doors unbarred, walls cracked, toys left in the dust. A clay figurine lies face down, forgotten, its smile chipped away. Chickens peck at the silence. Somewhere in the distance, a dog howls, and in your gut, you feel it. People are leaving. Families pack up, chasing rivers that no longer flow here, looking for food that's gone elsewhere. You don't belong in the city, but soon no one will. Odd fact detour, archaeologists once uncovered a cemetery here, full of skeletons with signs of malnutrition. No epic battle scars, no mass slaughter, just the slow erosion of health. You imagine yourself among them, remembered not as a hero, but as another body that couldn't adapt. That's the real danger. Not war, not predators, but the quiet grind of scarcity. You slip through the lanes, watching shadows of people argue over jars of grain. A man slams his fist against a wall, shouting words you can't understand. His neighbor spits back, waving a broken seal. Maybe it's about ownership. Maybe it's about survival. But you get the point. Order is cracking. The neat grid of Harappa's streets hides fractures you can't patch. And then, the river. You follow the sound of rushing water, expecting calm, and instead find chaos. The riverbank has shifted, the current eating into land where houses once stood. A half-collapsed wall leans dangerously over the water, bricks sliding into the current. You remember reading once that rivers abandoned Harappan cities, changing course, leaving settlements to dry out or drown. Now you see it in real time. The lifeline of this civilization has turned into a guillotine. You stand there, useless, As families drag bundles of cloth, jars, and goats away from the collapsing edge, they shout at you to help. But what can you do? You're weak, starving, sunburned, and still carrying yesterday's stomach bug. You try to lift a sack of barley. It's heavier than your entire willpower. You drop it, grain spilling into the mud, and the farmer curses so loudly you don't need a translation. The night grows colder. Smoke rises from a dozen hearths, but the warmth doesn't reach you. You huddle near a wall, watching a caravan form at the city gates. Ox carts creak under loads of grain and clay jars. Children ride on top, clutching dolls and sticks. Adults trudge alongside, eyes hollow, steps heavy. Harappa isn't a bustling city tonight. It's a place being emptied, one family at a time. And you're the worst equipped of them all. No seal to prove your identity, no grain to trade, no clan to claim you. When the last carts roll out, you'll be left in a hollowed city, gnawing on hope that isn't coming back. Remember when you thought the goat laughing at you was bad? Now, the entire civilization is laughing or maybe crying at your failure. You wanted to survive a day in Harappa, but the truth is, Harappa itself couldn't survive forever. What chance did you ever have? The torches dim. The river groans, and you finally admit it. You wouldn't last a single day here, not even at the end. So what does this little misadventure teach you? That survival isn't about being clever in the moment. It's about being born into the right systems, with the right knowledge, at the right time. Harappa's people thrived because they were part of a network. Farmers who understood the rains, traders who knew the routes, artisans who carved seals, everyone recognized you. You're an outsider with no language, no seal, no immunity. That makes you a footnote, not a survivor. But zoom out, and there's something comforting here. You live in a world where clean water flows from taps, where you don't need to trade carnelian beads to get bread, where monsoons can be tracked by satellites instead of prayed for in the fields.
Sorry.
When your stomach hurts, you have medicine. When your house leaks, you call a plumber. When your city falters, you don't have to walk barefoot across the dust. You turn on the news, complain about it online, and still sleep under a roof. Modern life feels ordinary, but compared to Harappa, it's miraculous. You don't have to fight for a loaf of bread. You don't fear that your river will vanish overnight. You don't need a carved stone seal to prove you exist. And even though the world has its flaws, the simple fact that you can scroll on your phone in bed without worrying about goats stealing your dinner is a gift. So tonight, when you pull the blanket up and sigh about tomorrow's chores, remember this. You wouldn't survive a day in Harappa, but luckily, you don't have to.